Hello and welcome back to the channel. So today I wanted to have a brief video, so it's not going to be a very long one, but I wanted to speak about a video that I saw from one of the YouTube creators called Football Club. I believe he's Australian and a Liverpool fan. And what he done was he picked out a few comments that he saw from, I think one was from Talksport and one was from the Rest is Football podcast, the one with Gary Lineker, Alan Shearer and Mika Richards. And they were discussing about Slot's decision to take Jarrel Quansah off at half time, and essentially they were basically saying that Slot kind of threw Quansah under the bus by making that change. So on the Talksport, they basically said that Slot was patting himself on the back, giving himself praise in his post-match interviews, and I wanted to kind of say, well, I don't think he did. In the post-match interviews I've seen, he highlighted the fact that it was a tactical decision for one. He highlighted the fact that Quansah was losing out on his duels, and that he felt that when Konate came on, he won more of his duels. And when you look at the stats and you see that Quansah, he only won 50% of his duels, Konate won 75% of his, it actually justifies Slot that he made the right decision, he made the right call. And I don't like the kind of narrative that Slot was patting himself on the back for making a decision. Like, he wasn't. He explained the decision. He answered the questions that were put towards him. That it was a tactical decision. He explained the reason why he done it. And I'm sure that he'll also explain the same thing to Quansah. And then moving on to The Rest is Football, which I actually do like this podcast. I listen to it every time there's a new episode. I listen to it. But even when they said this, it didn't sit right with me. The comments were that, essentially that he'd thrown Jarrel Quansah under the bus, and maybe he did it because he was a young player and Slot wouldn't have done that if he was a more experienced player, which again, I completely disagree with that as well. And the reason being that he selected him to start. Konate, we all know Konate's strengths. We all know what he's good at. We all know Quansah's strengths. We all know what Quansah's good at. And yes, whilst Quansah might be seen as young and perhaps relatively inexperienced, Slot picked that starting lineup based on what he thought was the best for that game. I go back to what I was saying in one of my videos yesterday with the tactical breakdown, that this was a potential banana skin for Liverpool. An Ipswich side that had been newly promoted, they'd been away from the Premier League for quite a long time. They hadn't lost at their ground for, I think it was like 12 months, a calendar year. And they were obviously buoyed to be back there, and we were going to that with a new manager, with a little bit of negativity surrounding the club because we hadn't made any signings, but on the back of a good pre-season. So all eyes would have been on Liverpool, the dreaded 12:30 kickoff and everything else. Slot even mentioned now he knows why Liverpool fans hate the 12:30 kickoff, so it was something that he was aware of before. But he picked Quansah in that starting lineup, which then suggested that, even though Quansah may have been a little bit inexperienced in comparison to other players, he thought that he was good enough for that game. So therefore, the inexperienced argument kind of goes out the window. It's not like he was picking, a 17-year-old who hadn't played for the team before. He was picking someone who featured quite a lot under Klopp last season. He picked someone who had played in all the pre-season games. He picked someone that he'd worked with, in the run-up. He didn't have any breaks between, for Euros or anything else like that. And based on everything that he saw in the pre-season friendlies, in training, in everything else, he thought that he was the man for the job. And so he picked him in that opening game. Then the other part that I disagree with is that he threw him under the bus. The reason why I disagree with this is because managers basically live and die by their decisions. If Slot hadn't have subbed Quansah and then Liverpool went on to lose that game because of losing out on duels, I do believe that these journalists that are calling out Slot for making this decision would also be the same ones highlighting a poor performance from Quansah and saying Slot should have made a change, Slot should have done this, Slot should have done that. Instead, during the first half, he noticed it. He then made the change, and then Liverpool went on to win from that. So, in order to try and call him out for, I don't know whether it's throwing him under the bus, or whether Slot thinks he made the right decision. Of course, Slot thinks he made the right decision. He made the change. Liverpool won as a result of that. We all could see that. So I don't know why we're kind of seeing this sort of negativity around that. Instead, I think that what people, or at least what these journalists should be doing, is actually calling out for what it is. He is the head coach. It's his job to get a Liverpool team that goes out there and performs as well as they possibly can, and to get the best results that we possibly can. And that's going to involve making changes like this. I think that any club, where if you're playing a game and you're under pressure in a half, you would want your manager to make changes at half time. At the same time that he identified that having the two centre backs sitting just out, opposite side of the D on our penalty area, that wasn't working, so we split them to opposite sides of the box instead. We saw little changes like that he made, which by making those changes, he's obviously identifying that he made a mistake in his tactical setup as well. So he fixed those, and then he noticed that Quansah losing out on a lot of his duels was actually hindering our performance. So he made a change and brought in someone who is probably physically more imposing, is probably more of that, physical type defender who he isn't going to lose out on those. And we could then start winning the ball back and then progressing the ball forward, winning those 50-50 battles, winning the first ball, winning the second ball. So I just thought it was really bad on the journalist's part to try and call out Slot for something which, in my opinion, he made the right call. He got the decision right, and the end result shows that he was actually fully vindicated in that. Especially when you consider the fact that not only did Liverpool go on to win, not only were we much better in the second half, but when you compare the stats of the two individual players, Konate did win more of those duels. And then, moving on to Quansah, he is a young defender. He made his breakthrough really last season, and he's coming through now. But, he's young. He's going to learn from games like this. And, Slot making this decision, it's not like he's just going to go to him, "Oh, I'm bringing you off. You were terrible." Whilst Konate may start in the next match, that's not to say that he's not going to now start working with Quansah and start looking at these areas of his game which Slot feels that he can improve upon. It's all about, it's all a process in football. It's a progress of taking players, working out what they're good at, what they're not so good at. Maybe Slot wasn't expecting, such a physical battle, or maybe he wasn't expecting Ipswich to kind of play the way they did, where, they had that more physical type striker, and they decided to put him up against, the side of the Liverpool defence where they thought that they'd have the biggest chance of winning those battles. If you'd have put him up against, say, for example, a Van Dijk, Delap, I think the striker's name is, then it would have been a different story. So Ipswich decided to, try and exploit a tactical vulnerability on Liverpool's behalf. Klopp identified that. He changed it. He fixed it. Liverpool were much better in the second half. Liverpool went on to win the game. In my opinion, it's as simple as that. So I just wanted to point that out. I also wanted to give a shout out to Football Club, the channel. I saw the video that he done. I was really intrigued by it. It was a really good video. I'm actually a fan. I'm subscribed to his channel as well. I watched a lot of his videos. So if you haven't saw him, check him out. I will put a link to the video in the description down below. So yeah, let me know in the comments anyway. Let me know what you think. Did Slot throw Quansah under the bus? Do you agree with Slot's decision? Did you think he was patting himself on the back or praising himself for making that change in any of the post-match interviews? Just let me know what you think in the comments down below. Also, smash the like if you enjoy the video, and also drop a subscribe if you like these style videos with a much shorter form content, to let me know that I'm doing the right thing, but also to be notified when I next do upload. So again, thank you for watching, and I'll speak to you all soon.